The unbundling of eskom, making the country more business-friendly to attract foreign investment and preparing the youth for the fourth industrial revolution. These are just some of the measures announced by President Cyril Ramaphosa in his State of the Nation address. But is this enough to kickstart our sluggish economy? And what about job creation? Tonight, I'll be talking to Dr. Cyril Ramaphosa. He's the Chief Economist at Econometrics, and Municipal, the Chief Operating Officer of Business Leadership South Africa. And thanks again for joining me this evening. And we'll be discussing whether the President has made the right economic noises, decisions, promotions, and how realistic are his solutions. But first, let's hear what he said about eskom.
To ensure the credibility of the turnaround plan and to avoid a similar fiscal crisis in a few years' time, eskom will need to develop a new business model. This business model needs to take into account the root causes of its current crisis and the profound international and local changes in the relative costs and market penetration of energy sources, especially the new technologies that are coming up.
Well, he announced several measures as we had last night, but eskom obviously the main one, and there are reasons for that. Azar, let me start with you. Why is eskom such an important announcement, and what is the significance of what he said about the unbundling?
Why eskom is so important is because, firstly, electricity touches almost every single bit of economic activity in the country. Secondly, eskom is in deep financial difficulty. It has a debt of 419 billion rand, which completely dwarfs the debt of all other state-owned enterprises. So if it goes under, then the economy will go into a very severe recession. We will have load shedding all over the place, and we'll be in deep trouble.
But then those who are opposed to the move on the part of the President are saying that this is privatization by stealth on the part of the government. And the unions have already suggested that there have not been any public hearings whatsoever. And there goes the President making this big, bold announcement that eskom is going to be broken into three parts.
I think that was a brilliant move on his part, Tim. I was actually hoping that it delves into eskom the way that it did. I think one of the President's biggest choices and maybe toughest choices that he has had to make is that of trying to continue to satisfy everyone and therefore playing in the sea of mediocrity, or him being bold, decisive and courageous. And I think what he did announcing eskom yesterday was precisely that, because we know that there are social partners who are saying, you know, we are watching what's going to happen to eskom. You know, you saw when the eskom board said we are giving 7% increases. We quickly had to recapitulate, you know, as the board, after having said that it's actually going to be 0%. The government gave in to that pressure. So I think it was really important for him to put his foot down and say that the decisions that are going to have to be made to ensure that we lift our economy out of this deep, dark hole that it's in are actually going to be made. I think that was very telling.
And you say you welcome the move, and I presume it's the same on your part, Azar. I'll be talking about other issues that may have led to the President making the bold announcement, as you call it. It is not regarded as a bold announcement by the SAFTU Secretary, Zwelinzima. Let's hear what he has to say about this move.
We're calling it a declaration of war. Unbundling of eskom, in our view, is a start towards privatizing each of those components of eskom and selling it over to the highest bidder. Already this government, if it was serious about a just transition, if it was serious about the need to consult communities and the labor movement, it would have done it already. Government have introduced and signed an agreement with 27 independent power producers behind the backs of the people of Mpumalanga, where we are told up to 5 power stations are going to have to be closed.
Well, there's Zwelinzima reacting to the announcement by the President.
Tim, this is a company in ICU. This is a company that is technically bankrupt. This is a company that is 15,000 people overstaffed. And while the costs have increased over the years, you haven't seen revenue, increasing commensurately. This is a company that has to borrow just to pay salaries and to make sure that they pay its finance costs. So, of course, you therefore have to make a decision. What decision am I going to make, and is it in the best interest of the country? If it is in the best interest of the country, then definitely the president made the right decision.
Well, it's going to be one of those big issues to be debated over a long period of time. The management of debt, I want to go back to it, because somebody carries the can here, right? It's easy for different interest groups to say, keep it as is, but somebody is going to pay back the debt anyway if no decisions are taken. That's on one side of the debt management, and of course the looming retrenchments on the other hand, because we don't have clarity on how, firstly, the debt management, and two, the retrenchments.
Well, this is precisely why the president said that there are painful implications of what is being done, and obviously it's painful for the workers, but he said to delay doing this will just worsen the situation still further. Eventually it'll sink South Africa. There's no question about it.
Is there a sense of the time frames on which this is likely to happen? Do you know? I mean, he can say it now, but delay the implementation to later this year, post-election.
The figures are quite stark. You've got a debt of 419 billion rand. The amount of interest that has to be paid on that, and remember, a lot of the people that are owed are foreigners who want their money back. The amount of interest that has to be paid is between 40 and 45 billion rand per year. And currently, the cash generated by Eskom is 27 billion rand per year. So how do you sustain an organization?
I'm just imagining, I mean, elections are exactly 3 months away. What will the president do? He might say, this is what I want to do, but we'll consult first so that the unions are on his side during the campaigning period, you see. So that's why I'm asking about the time frames. Does he do it now? Does he do it post-election?
This decision cannot be delayed. It should have been done yesterday. It should have been done last year. It should have been done 5 years ago. So he's going to have to go ahead with the decisiveness and the courageous decisions, that he has already started taking, and just go ahead and implement the unbundling, and whatever else it is that Eskom needs to do. Cost reductions is going to have to be one, so if they go... Eskom has already started with the Section 189 of their exco in December, so now they have to go through to the next level. That is the only sustainable way in which, because the two biggest costs that they have is primary energy, which is primary energy, which is coal, and their staff costs. So they are going to have to, and the quickest one that is within their control is that of staff. So they're
it's going to be a very interesting 90 days. It's going to be, because I'm thinking of work stoppages, some load shedding thrown in along the way. So it's going to be very difficult.
That is the reality. But just to confirm what Busisiwe said, you've had a decline in the demand for electricity over the last 10 years, and yet the workforce has increased by 15,000.
Now, other things that I want us to look at, I thought there would be big projects mentioned by the president. In the past, we had state projects leading the stimulus of the economic growth, but we didn't hear much about that.
So the interesting thing for me, I think, is the focus and the stimulation of the labor-intensive industries.
Yeah.
I think because through the stimulation of those, because of the structure of the South African market, which is very labor-intensive and low-skilled people, you need a stimulation of those. So I think if we can focus whatever investment that we have in the country in revitalizing that, I think it's going to augur well from a jobs perspective. I think the focus on special economic zones, I think he mentioned something to that effect. I think that's definitely going to be brilliant. So I think that public-private initiative with business is also going to be
But the thing that I find interesting is that as the president talks a lot about the economy, which is great, that it's got to grow and that jobs must be created. But he's talking big investments, right? And big companies, to my understanding, do not really create jobs. I would have thought that the effort would be towards stimulating, supporting the small and medium-sized businesses.
Well, the president has also mentioned small businesses, and there are some initiatives that your organization are probably involved in to create more small business activity. But the elephant in the room is if we can get rid of corruption and state capture. The savings are absolutely enormous. Well, you know, we've all laughed every day. We were listening to the Zondo Commission and hearing the sums of money that are involved. Can you imagine if that money was available to be plowed back into the economy? That would be the biggest
But you see,
stimulus
there's no
we could ever
urgency to get the money back. It does not look like it. And that's why somehow I think many South Africans have written it off and say, well, you know, there was a time when people spoke about thousands and maybe tens of thousands. Now, these days, you don't play. You talk tens of billions of rands if you're going to be taken seriously. So, I mean, how is that money going to be recovered then?
I don't think the money is going to be recovered, but simply to stop the process.
Yes.
Stop the bleeding.
Yes.
And I think there have been measures already to stop that. I thought it was a very important psychological message to cancel the dinner after the SONA and to save 4.5 billion rand or 4.5 million rand on expenditure.
Let me talk about two other parts which I think are very important. I trust that tourism, to a large extent, will help create employment. Yeah. I think that's like a quick win of sorts, isn't it? That's where you'll see a difference. So what are there specific things that you think are going to work in favor of that, of the growth of the tourism sector?
There's another labor-intensive industry where the focus should go when we know that after we implemented the visa regime that we did 4 or 5 years ago, we saw a direct decline, you know, in our tourist attractions, and therefore that industry suffered. So I think as soon as you take care of the visa regulations, you know, and the red tape around that industry, then you're definitely going to see an increase in tourists, and therefore, you know, inadvertently, there's going to be jobs that are going to be created.
And then, of course, our beloved fourth industrial revolution that somehow is still going to come as far as the policymakers are concerned. But it's here with us, isn't it? We use it. We use technology every day, but yet we don't play at the cutting edge of the development of new technologies.
Tim, if there was anything that was really encouraging in the State of the Nation address, it was the emphasis that the President put on developing early childhood development, giving out tablets to students to try and fast-track the process, and introducing schemes to teach them how to read properly. Now, you know, that's vital to get to prepare for the fourth industrial revolution. So he didn't skimp over that. Yes, there are huge challenges involved, but at least he's now doing something about it.
There's one other question that I have, and that is, he gave the State of the Nation address, but it's 30 days to go before a new government gets elected. It may be him, it may be somebody else who gets elected president or another party. So what happens then to all the promises that were made? Just mention a couple of quick wins or deliverables that you think can be delivered within 90 days to give encouragement to people that indeed this is the plan to follow, the Cyril Ramaphosa plan.
Tim, for me, jobs, jobs, jobs. I think because through jobs, you then start addressing the triple challenges of this country. Through jobs, you start addressing unemployment, and through unemployment, you start addressing poverty, and through poverty, you start addressing inequality. The biggest ticking time bomb that we have in this country is that of social instability.
Yeah.
And social instability.
But are there any quick wins that you...
But the resuscitation of the labor-intensive industries, you know, get people into jobs, you know, then you'll see stability.
I think what people would like to see is a little more action in bringing those perpetrators of corruption to book. If they start seeing that within the next 90 days.
It will send a signal.
It will send a signal. You know, that you're not going to stimulate much higher economic growth overnight like this.
Yeah.
It's like a big tanker that has been heading for a major maelstrom, and you're trying to turn it around. It's going to take years, not months, to do so. But at least if people see that action is starting to be taken at the very core of what the problems are, I think that people will start getting more confident. And
as we conclude, I want to throw in the role of municipalities, because the biggest problems, we're told, when it comes to the corruption that you mentioned and poor delivery, and I think where the small, medium-sized businesses are the worst affected, it is at that level. What do you do then? I mean, when we have the commissions of inquiry, we're going to talk about them in a short while. Is there anything that can be done?
I think the dysfunctionality that you see in the municipalities is precisely because there is lack of skills, there is lack of competency. You don't have the right people in the jobs. So I think we're going to have to start fixing that. I think it's unacceptable that you see so many municipalities that are actually sitting with qualified audits, and we think that that is normal. I think I liked how the president asserted the NDPP, and giving her the authority to say, go ahead and without any fear or favor and do what you need to do where you find
it's a matter of life and death, literally,
absolutely,
for many of the councillors and whistleblowers, sadly. Now, Sidwell is joining us from Alex, and welcome, Sidwell.
Hi, Tim.
Yes, sir.
Here is the president, Matamela or Ramaphosa. He has outlined what he's all about at the SONA last night, and I don't know what Zolinzima Vibe is all about, because he's the one who was talking about the tsunami, those years ago. And we have now seen what the tsunami means, in his own terms. He can't even wait to see what this turnabout is all about at eskom and all those SOEs. We are seeing heads roll from the Zondo Commission, honestly, he needs support even from the opposition.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Sidwell, I get the point. I think Sidwell is in support of the president's move on the part of eskom. As we conclude, I get a sense, Busisiwe, that you believe that the move to unbundle eskom will happen within the next couple of months or so.
It should happen yesterday. The sooner the board of eskom implements it, the better.
Tim, you've got to bear in mind that this idea has been on the cards for a long, long time.
Yes.
So you had a panel of experts then coming and just saying, this is the way to go.
Yep.
I mean, the path should be set to do it quite quickly.
So one of those decisive actions that have got to be taken by the
Absolutely.
president. Thank you very much for having been my guests. I appreciate it. Still ahead, Zondo, Nugent, Mokoro Mpati, commissions of inquiry. Do they have teeth, and what good can they deliver? We take a closer look at the countless commissions of inquiry currently taking place, and stay with us.